Yes, sir. Welcome to another live episode of the Eric Crocker Show. Of course, I'm your host, former NFL and AFL defensive back, and we're talking all things San Francisco 49ers, Baltimore Ravens, injury updates with Coach Dezi. And at first, I put Mooney Ward stock up, but actually, we're going to talk about Deommodore Lenoir and really how well he's been playing. But of course, first, I want to let everybody know that this show is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Go ahead, download the app or go to underdogfantasy.com. Use promo code Crocky for a double deposit up to $100. I came up a little bread last night, you know what I'm saying? A little $60, nothing too crazy. But that was cool. Came out on a positive note. Shout out to the Warriors and who was I watching? I was watching the Warriors and Phoenix. I think that's how I made some of my money back. So yeah, Underdog Fantasy. Make sure y'all tune into that. Let's go. We got Coach Desi. She'll be joining us shortly, just running a few minutes behind. So Gabriel Reyes, you will get to hear her talk about either Lamar Jackson on our fantasy team, or I wonder how everything is going in her household right now. Obviously, Coach Desi, she is a big 49er fan, and her husband is a big Baltimore Ravens fan. So the house will be split on Christmas evening that day over on the East Coast where they stay. But fun times, fun times. Aside from that, how's everybody feeling, man? How are you guys feeling about the San Francisco 49ers? My spirits are really high. I see a lot of the same conversations circling. We touched on it a little bit yesterday as far as uh, why Lamar Jackson is in the MVP discussion. Okay, guys, a lot of this stuff, like, don't pay too much attention to it. Like, you have to have more than one person up for MVP. There's always going to be just multiple names. But the multiple names, it doesn't mean anything. Like, there's one winner, and that winner right now is going to be Brock Purdy. So if you look at any of the MVP, the odds, that tells you how everybody feels. Look at the odds. And the odds for MVP right now is Brock Purdy minus 200, 300, whatever it is. You see minus 200, 300, anything for an award, essentially, like, that person is just, especially this late in the year, that person won. All right, like, that person has won the MVP award. So you'll see other names because they gotta have just other people up for it. And I think deservedly so. One, this is kind of a weird year from a statistical standpoint with quarterbacks and the MVP award. A lot of times you see the 45 touchdowns, 5,000 passing yards on a great team. And this year it looks a little different. I think ultimately it's going to be Brock Purdy's efficiency. Well, one, I think he's leading the league in touchdown passes right now, so that's big. But again, he doesn't have. It's not like he has a ton of touchdown passes. Now, I think Brock Purdy will tell you, "Well, I don't throw the ball as much as some of the other MVP guys in the past," and it's not even close. All right, but right now, Brock Purdy has 29 touchdown passes. All right, 29 touchdowns. So we're talking about MVP, 29 touchdown passes, and I think yesterday we brought up Drew Brees not winning the award in a year where he threw 46 touchdown passes. All right. So it is kind of a weird year, a down year in terms of overall statistics. But as far as the play goes, I think Brock is playing extremely well. And he is one of the more efficient quarterbacks that I've ever seen throughout the season. I've seen this stat floating around. Brock Purdy has not thrown the least amount of passes in the NFL, but the 49ers ranked 32nd in passes. So, of course, there's going to be some other quarterbacks that maybe got hurt, and then, they've thrown less, they've thrown less, like Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins probably thrown less than Brock Purdy because he got hurt midway through the year. There's some quarterbacks that fill in for him, like a Nick Mullins, etc. Like, they're going to throw less. But as a team, the 49ers have thrown the least amount of passes in the NFL. And even with that, Brock Purdy, number 2 or number 3 in passing yards. Again, the most touchdowns in the NFL. The efficiency that Brock is playing with right now is really through the roof. All right. Shout out to everybody in the chat. If you're feeling good, you already know what to do, man. Put those 5 flames. Dead John 86 feeling good. Gabriel Reyes feeling good. We got Herbalist Hayes has feeling good, feeling great. 5 flames. Everybody feeling good. Let's go. 90 Gang Tay in the house, and he says Lamar going to run. I don't see him throwing over 200 yards on his defense. I would say this, and I also hear this, and you're going to hear a lot of this throughout the week. Oh, 49ers, they struggle with mobile quarterback. Everybody struggles with mobile quarterbacks. So don't let that narrative of 49ers struggle with these type of quarterbacks, whatever. More times than not, quarterbacks that are able to utilize their legs, that is a part of their game, and you have to kind of just factor that into. There will likely be some kind of production with that. It is not a 49er issue, it is a league issue. When Lamar Jackson in 2018 or 19, whenever that was, when he won the NFL MVP award, everybody struggled to stop him running the ball. You had last year, it was Jalen Hurts up for MVP. He ran the ball well. Everybody struggled to just stop him running, right? So you could try to contain it with all these quarterbacks that are mobile and can move very well. Josh Allen's of the world, all these guys, right? You could throw Trevor Lawrence in that mode as well. But all these quarterbacks, Kyler Murray, all these quarterbacks that move well, it is just a different kind of production that they just will have. So again, we see that a lot of 49ers. They struggle. They struggle with with don't worry about that. Everybody has an issue stopping those guys. Shout out to my guy Sip to Tally Films. He says exactly everybody has an issue with it. And he's a Baltimore Ravens guy. And he will be joining us tomorrow morning live on this channel. So make sure you guys, if you are some Ravens fans in here, make sure y'all set your reminders that we'll be going live 8 a.m. Pacific time. All right. With no further ado, we are bringing up the star of the show. And of course, Coach Desi. Coach Desi, good morning. How you doing?
I am on fire, guys. Y'all know how important this game is to me and my household. My husband is a Ravens fan. I am a diehard 49er fan. So I cannot wait to get into this game. I'm ready. I'm ready. Almost more exciting than the Eagles game.
It is really exciting. We have a question for you out the gate. Someone said, or Gabriel said, I'm here to see if Coach Desi can put Lamar on her fantasy team.
First of all, love that you remembered I said that last week. I for sure put Kyler Murray on my roster. No lie, gave up Goff and all the points that came with it. I got bumped out of the playoffs. It was what I took one for the team, guys, just like I told you. Unfortunately, someone has Lamar, so I can't get him, but I did have J.K. Dobbins at the beginning of the year, so maybe I need to put like OBJ on there or something, some other person.
Yeah. So she couldn't help us out. And for those of you who missed the story, every quarterback that she's had and she plays them, something ends up happening to the quarterback. And she's like, you know what? They either don't play well or they get hurt or whatever the case is. And she's like, kind of bad juju that she has. But she's like, hey, maybe if she puts Lamar Jackson on the team, he won't play well. So we won't get that kind of luck. I think the defense will just have to stop Lamar Jackson. What are your thoughts just on that matchup? Again, I already talked about how it is extremely difficult to defend those type of quarterbacks. But you have Lamar Jackson, who's coming off of a game where he was very protective on the ground. We know that he can make plays and make throws with his arms. He just creates a different type of problem, really, for every defense that he goes up against. What are your thoughts on Lamar Jackson against the San Francisco 49ers defense?
Okay.
They gave up 284 rushing yards last week. Everybody kind of glossed over that, but that did happen.
Yeah, Lamar is a special talent. There's no doubt about it. And I just want to take a moment to give him his flowers because I do respect them as a competitor. He is, the beginning of the year, it was tough because they got a new offensive coordinator. They were trying to put him more in the pocket, decrease the amount of mobility. He's got that banged up knee from last year. So I understood like their ideas moving in. So looking at it from my perspective, I thought he's done very well. He's throwing more in the pocket. They got him some more offensive weapons. I was kind of nervous for the Ravens when Dobbins went out, and certainly when Mark Andrews went out, because that's been kind of Lamar's security blanket. Whenever he needs to check down, he knows he can always throw to Mark Andrews. But with him going out, and now they've got another running back out. So they've had, their share of injuries, but they have not skipped a beat. Their offense has continued to be able to produce. And as you said, he's starting to get mobile. He's starting to get out there, make things happen. In fact, he is the leading rusher for the Ravens this year. So it's definitely something to consider. I do love how our defense was able to contain Jalen Hurts. I do love that they were able to contain Kyler Murray. They've figured that part out, and the more practice they've had with those teams, I'm a little bit more confident. The thing that pulls me back is a couple of, we've got a banged up defense right now. So You don't have Eric Armstead. You don't have, some people on that line at full health that's able to contain the pocket and set the edge. Well, our edges are doing okay, but that's the problem with him is if he can't get out the edge, he's going to go up the middle. And so without an Eric Armstead there, we might have a little problems there. But I do want to give flowers to Javon Kinlaw. I know last year it was tough. I really want to give him his flowers right now. It was, you kind of put me on the hot spot on whether or not he was going to be okay long term. Although he's still a rotational player, he's definitely looking good, and I hope that his knees are resolved and he's going to do well. The other problem I have is our secondary's banged up, and they've got a lot of offensive weapons, a lot of people that he's really starting to get comfortable throwing to. People like Likely, Likely stepped in. He's throwing well to him. Zay Flowers. I mean, they've got a whole big roster out there that we can't just. It's not like Seattle where we just got to contain DK or something. They've got some real players on their offensive side. So with a banged up secondary, it's a little wishy-washy, but we match up very well. I mean, defensively, offensively, I think this is going to be a hell of a game, and I can't wait.
You talked about Lamar Jackson and how well he's playing right now. He is a guy who's leading the Baltimore Ravens in rushing, and then also, throwing the ball. He's doing well, completing 66% of his passes, has thrown for over 3,100 yards right now. Doesn't have the amount of touchdown passes as we see from Brock Purdy, but still has accounted for 23 total touchdowns for Baltimore. There are 49er fans who have been pushing back on the thought of Lamar kind of being in the MVP conversation. And, I've kind of been on record now. I said it earlier in this show. I said it yesterday, like Brock Purdy's going to win the MVP. But that doesn't mean that a guy like Lamar shouldn't have, part of this discussion, shouldn't get maybe a couple votes, to go his way. We're talking about a guy who is really everything for Baltimore. He's leading this team, and he's leading them and getting them to play offensively, not at like this super consistent high level, but to the point where, man, when you play against Baltimore Ravens, the first thing you have to do, the first thing you think about is, how do you stop Lamar Jackson, right? So when your first thought is stopping this player, and then you go and you look and you say, all right, you got to stop him, and dang, this is a team that's 11-3, so best record in the AFC, dynamic player, not super eye-popping numbers, but really tough to defend. Like, what is your thoughts on just Lamar as the MVP candidate?
I mean, he deserves to be in the conversation. I mean, that's the interesting thing is this is more of a slight against Brock Purdy, right? So when Brock's done well against Dak, he did well against Jalen Hurts. He's done well against all these other quarterbacks. And it's like people out there just want to say, oh, well, instead of just saying, okay, he deserves to be the front runner, all of a sudden you hear Lamar Jackson's an MVP candidate. I have not heard that from mainstream until this week. It was like, whoa, maybe Dan Orlovsky. I know he appreciates the work that Lamar puts in, as he should. I mean, he's, again, for a guy who like always used his legs to kind of escape, like if he didn't see something there, he was quick to run, to now have to deal with working with a new offensive coordinator, trying to stay in the pocket more and be able to have a different connection with his wide receivers and things like that. I mean, he's really done a lot of good work. I mean, I can see it. And I think he deserves to be in the conversation. That said, he wasn't the last pick of the draft. So, and if Brock Purdy is putting up the same stats, similar stats as a Lamar Jackson, and he was the last pick, I mean, to me, and I'm a 49er fan. I've told you guys, I'm always going to see through jaded eyes. I'm going to say, okay, it's a 49er. It's got to be Brock Purdy. I think I'm tired of having to come back and defend. And it's that I'm glad you brought up the MVP race, because that was my irk this week, was like, really hadn't heard much about Lamar being MVP. It was always Dak or Jalen or Josh Allen or, the big guns. And Lamar kind of flew under the radar, but he does deserve to be in the conversation.
I think most logically thinking people, and you know what? Actually, let me rewind this. I can't wait till tomorrow when I do have my Ravens content creator on, so he can give his perspective on maybe the challenges and certain things that Lamar is going through this year. Because he doesn't have a supporting cast like the 49ers. And I'm not saying that it's the 49ers supporting cast that's propping up Brock Purdy, but it definitely helps when you in terms of efficiency, you know, boosting some of your numbers. And again, not I say that that's not a slight at Brock, but it helps when you have really good players. And Lamar playing with, Zay Flowers. I think Zay Flowers is a terrific receiver. I would love to see him on the 49ers. I don't know if, or if I ask every 49er fan, all right, you have the option. You can have Brandon Ayuk or Zay Flowers. Like, who would you take? You'd say Brandon Ayuk. If I asked most 49er fans, would you like Mark Andrews or George Kittle? Well, they like George Kittle because Mark Andrews isn't even playing. He's hurt right now. All right. Would you like Deebo Samuel or Odell Beckham? They take Odell Beckham. Would you like Nelson Aguilar or Juwan Jennings? They probably take Juwan Jennings. So when you look at, and then you go in the backfield, would you rather have Gus Edwards or Christian McCaffrey? So really at every position, you would take, I'm talking about every position in every slot, you would take the 49er guy over the Ravens guy. And even then, even with all that being said, somehow, some way, this team is number one in the AFC. So
Yes.
like when you think about it from that standpoint, like that is Lamar. Like that's the Lamar effect, and not putting anything against him and the players he's playing with or anything like that. But it's clear like that this shit goes with him. And if he has an off game, or if he isn't playing as well for a game, then they are not an 11-3 team. Not even close. I mean, but it's all on him. I don't even know if you could put like just, okay, we're just going to have a competent quarterback put in there. Because I think with the 49ers, that's been the thing, right? We've seen this team excel and play very well with Jimmy Garoppolo, right?
Yeah.
Like with Jimmy Garoppolo, he tricked a lot of people. It's like I have arguments with people because I'm watching him. I'm like, not really tight like that, but I appreciate the things that he does well and stuff like that. Like he does some things good, but you could tell like a lot of players doing the heavy lifting, etc. But he tricked a lot of people, and it wasn't him. It was Kyle Shanahan. He tricked us.
Yeah.
Well, couldn't trick me. I saw right, but it was very clear that like Jimmy, like you're cool, you're a competent starter, and I said competent starter then. He got benched for the Raiders, so I don't even know how competent of a starter he is. But if you do put a competent starter in with the 49ers, they won't have the year. And I actually was in the I was in the sauna today talking to a shout out to a 49er fan. He was like, "Oh yeah, I know you. He followed me on Twitter and everything. I thought that was cool."
Is that with
But
the guy sleeping? I saw you put something.
that
Somebody
was
was.
yesterday. This morning is a different. It was a different person. But he was talking about 49ers and quarterbacks and playing well. And I was like, and my buddy Tim Brown was like, man, you could put anybody in that offense. I'm like, no, you can't put any quarterback in this offense. But if a quarterback fits and he's competent, then you can do well. And that's what we saw with Jimmy Garoppolo. But you're not gonna get MVP discussion or MVP winner like you're getting from Brock. Like that takes someone that is more than competent. That takes somebody that is, hey, this guy's a good quarterback. So it props whether it's the system, the players, the situation, and the quarterback seeing the field the same way Kyle does. If you do those things, like you can be an MVP candidate in this offense, and I think that's what we're seeing right now. So
Yeah.
different situations. I think Lamar has a different level of pressure on him playing and play out to like, game in and game out to be the reason. I think Brock does a great job of making it to where he doesn't ever have to be the reason, but it is efficient at a high level. I hope I'm wording this right because I know how my comments sections get, and they're going to think that I'm taking a shot at Brock, and I'm like, absolutely not. But it's hard to explain it, but hopefully people understand the difference and why Lamar, in my opinion, deserves to be in the conversation for MVP. He will not get it. Brock Purdy will get it, but Lamar with what he's doing, and I think the more you see it, like the more they keep winning, the more they're wow, the number one team in the AFC. I think it's hard to say he doesn't deserve to be at least in the conversation.
Yeah. The thing with Lamar is a couple things. One, I think this is the first time he's been healthy this time of year in the past couple of years. I think I heard someone say. And so it'd be interesting to see how that plays well into the playoffs because he doesn't classically do great in the playoffs, which blows my mind because they've always been a pretty solid team. So it'll be interesting to see if they can go further this year than what they've done. Although the injuries, our team knows all about how injuries can impact a season, right? So they've been having a lot of dinged up players, a lot of players completely out on IR. So again, kudos to them for having the record they have, overcoming those adversities. I totally agree. That is all just a flowers to Lamar for being able to work through that. And this team is scary because they could be like our 2019 team where we were just kind of facing injuries, but still had the dog in us, still, got far. That could be this team. And you want to be afraid of teams whose backs are against the wall and have the defense to sock you in the mouth. So one question I have for you, though, because this is interesting, I haven't heard this go down. We've talked about Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner being the best tandem linebacker in all of football. However, what do you think about Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen? Because their numbers are slightly better than Dre and Fred's.
So I think we see the 49ers every week, and we can feel just the impact of Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, like what they mean to the defense, like flying around, what they do very well. But anybody who has watched a Baltimore Ravens game, the first thing, matter of fact, it was like a couple weeks ago. That was the first time that I really watched the Ravens, like just in full. They must have been on primetime television. And I said, damn, that defense is good. Like, like they are flying around, they are hitting, they are multiple with what they're able to do. They got big bodies up front. You got the long guy, Kyle Hamilton, who is able to, this is a guy that ran in the 4.7s at his pro day, ran better than that at the combine. But you see him and just being able to like cover guys vertically pushing down the field, like your windows shrink with where you're able to throw the ball because the dude is such a long defender. Watching them just as a whole and how they operate as a defense, it's very apparent. Like, man, fast and physical. And I'm like, man, will they cause problems with the 49ers? I don't know. We'll see. But you talk about Roquan Smith, you talk about Patrick Queen, and they are playing very well. And you do not watch a Baltimore Ravens game. I just was watching them on Sunday night against Jacksonville. And same thing, like those two, like they jump out to you. You see it was number 0, number 6, whatever numbers at 13, whatever numbers they are. Those guys, they got the low digit numbers for linebackers. But you will notice them. Now, are they better than Fred and Greenlaw? I obviously, just my bias won't let me admit that, but they are a terrific tandem. And I will say this about them because I kind of keep my ear to the ground, trying to hear what the streets are saying. Baltimore Ravens have felt all along that Roquan Smith is the best linebacker in the NFL. Now, most people, because 49ers, the defense, on primetime, they're so good, the expectations so high. I think Fred Warner is just kind of pegged in as like that guy. But again, you talk to some Baltimore guys, and again, I can't wait to get my guy on tomorrow to talk more about this. They believe that Roquan Smith is the best linebacker in the NFL. I'm curious to see if he will echo those same sentiments, but I like that you brought that up because they are a really good tandem, and they do pop off the screen anytime you watch a Baltimore game.
Yeah, I have the numbers here. So for total tackles for Fred Warner, 116, for Dre, 98. Roquan Smith, 142. Patrick Queen, 112.
So a lot more combined tackles between those two.
Sacks for Fred Warner, 2.5. Dre Greenlaw, 1.5. Roquan is 1.5. And Patrick Queen, 3.5. So it's going to be if Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw is listening to this at all, let's show up and show them what y'all are about, because I'm here for that for sure.
Well, I think that would stop a lot of the conversation, and that's what's been happening with, on the other side of the ball, right? Every time Brock Purdy has gone up against a guy who people consider to be really good or an MVP candidate or whatever, he has outplayed them in that game, whether it was Dak Prescott, in that game and what that looked like, Jalen Hurts in that game, what it looked like. And now he has another opportunity this week to do that against Baltimore. But when you're on the same field, everybody gets to kind of feel that impact, right? So now you look at this matchup between these linebackers who are playing on opposite sides of the ball. What does it look like with Patrick Queen coming downhill or Roquan Smith coming downhill and going to hit Christian McCaffrey? How do they defend them in space? What was I listening to when they talked about that? They talked specifically about it was the Philadelphia Eagles guys when they were on the sideline. And they're like, man, we know what they want to do. We know what they want to. They want to get the ball into their playmakers' hands in space. Like we know that we got to do this, we got to do that, and it's a lot easier said than done. But I know the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan, a big thing that he's going to do, get the ball in Debo, Christian McCaffrey, Kittle, get the ball in those guys' hands in space, and I want to see how those linebackers react because a lot of what Kyle Shanahan does is designed to put linebackers in conflict, right? Like run fakes. Can you take a couple steps up so I can hit this big crossing route behind you? It should be a big window, timing, rhythm, explosive play. Show them different things. It screens the Debo Samuel, and these linebackers are going to be having to run sideline to sideline. How would that look? How would they defend that? And I think for them, they're probably really up to the challenge and saying, yeah, we're going to show everybody that, the Baltimore Ravens, we are the ones that have the best linebacker tandem in the league.
Yeah, it's going to be a great game. And then we can't even forget about their kicker, right? So they're going to put up points every time they get a field goal opportunity. So we need to make sure that we keep them way out of the line of fire for any of that to happen.
So we got Cali Buzz in the chat, and he says, how are their LBs in coverage? I don't know. We're going to find out, though. Like, that's the thing. Again, because with Kyle Shanahan, he wants to put those guys in conflict. And we'll know more about that because I can give my novice opinion. But tomorrow I will have a Baltimore Ravens content creator coming on. And all of these questions that y'all have, we will be able to discuss those in detail where he will really be able to answer. I've watched 2-3 games of Baltimore and really watched them. Saw what that looked like. And it's like, all right. But somebody that watches and knows them in and out, I can't wait to hear his take on linebackers coverage. Lamar Jackson as an MVP candidate, really, and much, much more.
Yeah, we have a very dinged up team, and I'm personally a little concerned about our defense from that perspective. Deommodore Lenoir with his ribs, he looked like he was in considerable pain on the sideline against the Cardinals. It looked like I think it was the left side. I haven't seen any update as to any kind of assessment. Do you have any information on that?
I haven't heard anything, but I do have someone that is a part of the 49ers, and I will message that person today and see if I can get a response. Usually I get some kind of update on little things here and there, but we'll see. I'll message that person today.
Okay.
But that would be a big blow because, as this title says, Deommodore Lenoir, stock up. This is a guy that you drafted in the 5th round, and I just compared him the other day to Terrell Brown. He reminds me so much of T. Brown. A little different in the sense of he plays inside a lot more than we ever saw Brown play inside. Brown was solely an outside cornerback, but just kind of not the biggest a guy, but quick-footed, good hips, change of direction, super scrappy, and you get all that with Deommodore Lenoir. So not having a guy like him out there who has the versatility to play outside corner in a base situation, slide inside to the nickel spot in nickel or dime situations, that's a big miss, not having a guy that does so much for you on your team. So hoping that his rib situation isn't as bad because kind of need him. You kind of need him. And you're going to need him against guys like Zay Flowers. I mean, this is a quick, twitched-up rookie out of Boston College, terrific receiver, has explosibility. Watched him at Boston College. He was super dynamic. And my guy, Will Blackman, friend of the podcast, he was just on last week. Will have been talking about Zay Flowers for years. All of a sudden, everybody starts seeing him, and it's like, wow, I think he ended up being a first-round pick. So, Zay Flowers, terrific receiver. And if you don't have Deommodore Lenoir, the way the rest of the 49ers secondary is kind of made up, I think it can be a big problem for the 49ers. You need them out there.
I'm not sure that I saw. I mean, the last game we weren't wrapping up. The tackles were kind of going through. People made movements and they got yards that I don't think they should have gotten just because of the tackling wasn't there. And so I would worry about, even if he is in the game, can he wrap up? Can he get, can he use that arm, that left side to help, bring people down and do that part. I think Charvarius Ward, I don't think I saw his groin injury be a factor in the game. I mean, obviously he looked amazing. So, that's one good thing that we don't have to worry about. But I definitely am concerned about Deommodore Lenoir for sure. Plus the deficits that we have on the line, the D line not being able to, work the way they usually do with an Eric Armstead and Javon Hargrave and things like that.
What Armstead is dealing with, is that what we spoke about last year?
I think so. I mean, I still haven't.
The knee and the foot, and you talked about how you felt like that was kind of an issue or something that might be, lingering for a long time, and then you see this game, it finally is something that held him. I'm like, man, I think it was specifically the knee and the foot that you talked about.
I did. So last year, he for sure had plantar fasciitis, which is an inflammation of the tissue at the bottom of your foot, connects to the heel. It can happen, especially in folks that tend to be flat-footed. And I think I've witnessed his feet, and they look a little flat. So that strain there, when when you're here, it helps keep alignment of your legs. But when you go flat-footed, it goes up and it adds a stress to the knee, and so it can cause issues there. So I don't know for sure that that's what's going on, but what I do know is that plantar fasciitis is one of these naggy little things that can come and go. It's hard to just keep it out of keep it gone away. And so it can rear its head, and it's been a long season. So I wouldn't be surprised if that is what he's dealing with. And if it is that triggering the knee, or did he have a separate injury on top of that we're just unaware of?
That's tough. So, right now, part of what makes the 49ers so good is, I think, especially when you look at the wins, they've gone on multiple win streaks now, fairly healthy in those moments. And then you see last game where you're playing without your big guys in the middle, and all of a sudden you're getting gashed on the ground. I mean, I can't tell you, and it was hard to kind of really tell because I was initially watching it on my we had 7-on-7 tryouts on Sunday, and I'm watching it on my cell phone. And I just, it's not like I have like this huge screen. I got an iPhone Pro Max, but I just see the 49ers getting gashed, and I'm like, man, what's kind of going on with this team just running right up the middle and getting these explosive run plays? But you just felt how you're missing those two guys. And I did speak with someone, and they said, man, I hope it was one of those things where they just kind of held guys out of precaution, and they knew they were playing the Cardinals. They felt like it was a favorable matchup for them, so maybe they can play and win without those two guys. Right. But to play Baltimore, I think you kind of need all hands on deck until you don't. Like, I think you go into the game thinking we need Hargraves, like we need Armstead, and if the game gets away and it's favoring you, then all right, maybe we can kind of chill out and let these guys get a little bit of rest. But heading into the game, it's definitely got to be a little bit different mindset than when you're playing against Arizona. And the one thing I will say is having a different mindset, San Francisco 49ers, for this season, when they have had to play those games where it's like, okay, it's good on good, I feel like they get up the most for those games. We saw that in Dallas. We saw that in Philly.
Yeah, do you think that that'll be interesting to see how they play this? It's not necessarily a must win, but it's more of like a big showcase, right? Like you want to be able to give your best against a team that has these incredible ability and can give you a big test of where you are, especially when people are talking about this could be the two teams in the Super Bowl, right? So you want to give it your best effort. It's not necessarily a must win. It's not really going to mess us up in terms of losing our spot in the playoffs at the moment. But I don't know. Do you risk it? Do you put them in just for the good showcase? Or do you try to still play it cautious, knowing we still have 2 games left? The Rams are still, they won't go away. They're still in the hunt. They're not the team we played at the beginning of the year. So that could be a game that's really important, right? So do we want to cash in chips now, or do we want to save them for later? Is kind of an interesting perspective. What do you think they'll do on that?
I think if the guys are able to go, they're going to give them that cortisone shot, and all right, let's go.
Let's go. That's the game I want. Let's do this.
Because you don't want to put yourself in a position where week 18 ends up being a must win to get the number 1 seed. You'd like to have it locked up before, and then all right, Hargraves, all right, Armstead, you have 2 weeks of rest, right? Like you don't have to play week 18 now. You don't have to play in the wild card round. You kind of rest up and heal up and get those things going. So again, I think if there's a window of opportunity to get those guys a little bit more rest by you're up big. All right, let's rotate a little bit more, or just in general rotate them a little bit more. But I do think you kind of need them in this game, at least initially, because again, you are playing against a team that they want to run the ball. They're going to give you multiple looks. They're going to move guys. They got big bodies. That's the one thing that I've always liked about Baltimore. And I wish the 49ers would kind of steal that philosophy just a little bit, like especially on the defensive line. Where are the big bodies? And I thought that Kinlaw was going to be that guy, but he's kind of slimmed up and he kind of gets moved out the way a little bit. I think he did better last week, but in some reps. But we've seen him kind of just get moved out of there. Like we're the big immovable guys, and that's what Baltimore has.
Speaking of big immovable guys, their fullback.
Yeah, Ricardo.
Yes, Ricard. He is a big dude, man. He makes Juszczyk look like SpongeBob. Well, it's just crazy how big that guy is, and he's like a Trent Williams. When he gets moving, you got to make business decisions. I'm telling you, you don't want to get pancaked by that guy.
If I'm not mistaken, I think he's 300 pounds.
You might be right. So by the way, Crock put up the link to join in. Ladies, it's your challenge. I haven't had ladies up in here. I need some ladies in the comments. We need to get you guys on.
I know. Sometimes Tia comes on.
Yeah.
I've seen her in a little minute. Patrick Ricard, 6'3", 305 pounds. That's their fullback. That is a drastic difference than 49ers fullback. Kyle Juszczyk. I mean, Juszczyk is a lot slimmer, moves well. Obviously, the 49ers do a lot of different things with him. They'll put him at essentially kind of a receiver, but kind of like an H-back. They use him a little bit more as an H-back, a guy that they like to kind of get out in space at times. He could be the point man, and he runs routes, and he does a really good job. But Ricard is a different type of fullback, really big, wide body, essentially a guard that just moves extremely well.
Yeah. How big was Jerome Bettis? Because I feel like he's bigger than he was.
Yeah, I don't think Bettis was 300.
Yeah.
Bettis was not tall, but I bet at his heaviest he played like 260, which is hella heavy because he was a real running back. He really moved, well, and he was strong. And at the end of his career, he was like he scored a bunch of touchdowns, but they were all like 1 yard out. He's kind of just really like a power back. But Bettis was a legit running back that could move. I bet he played around 250, and maybe he was listed at let's see what he's listed at. I wouldn't be surprised if he was listed at 240 and played heavier than that. That's a good name. That really reminds me of my childhood, just hearing names like Jerome Bettis.
He was the real deal. I love that guy.
Let's see.
251. Binyam said.
Yeah, I'm looking. It says 5'11", 252. So he probably at that's heavy. That is heavy.
He's got 50 pounds on that guy.
and even Ricardo, he's 6'3". So you got 4 inches on the guy. There's a lot of weight. Yeah.
I'm telling you, I had to ask my husband. I was like, "Who is that guy? That looks like Trent Williams running full speed right now." He's like, "No, that's our fullback." And I'm like, "Bro, that guy's huge."
We got T-Dub in the chat. He says he played some defensive tackle snaps for Baltimore in the past. So,
yeah, Mike Allstott. That's another.
Mike Allstott. That is a blast from the past. Yeah. Mike Allstott is definitely a guy who he was like a running back though. He was like another Jerome Bettis, and then he wore that neck roll. So he just looked like this just big, stiff white guy just running through guys and running away from guys too. That was interesting to see. We got Sip to Tally Films. He says he was a defensive tackle in college, talking about Patrick Ricard. So,
yeah, he's legit for sure. So, what do you think? Do you give score prediction? What do you think?
I typically have. Sometimes they kind of make me do it on Locked On, but I haven't done score predictions. Obviously, I like the 49ers in this game. 49ers are favored by 4.5 and deservedly so. I think they've been playing very well offensively. They're running the ball very well. They're throwing the ball very well. I'd say as far as just the confidence in the run game and the passing game, this is probably the most confidence I've ever had, at least in my recent memory, for a team to really be good at doing both. And I think they play off of each other. I think Kyle Shanahan's philosophy is run the ball or use the threat of the run to set up his passes. And I think they're doing that at an extremely high level right now. Shout out to Purdy being able to execute all of that. But as far as this game, if I had to give a score prediction, I would say 24-20. So that would be Baltimore covering. Last time I checked, it was a 4.5 point spread for the Niners. But so I got Baltimore covering, but 49ers winning 24-20.
So the matchup shows.
That's me showing respect to their defense because 49ers have put up 30 and 40 points on. Anytime I think like, oh man, they're playing against a great defense and a great, opponent, then all of a sudden they're like, yeah, not really. Let's put 40 points on these people.
Now it says I'm looking at the matchup. It's showing that our defense is a better rushing defense. Their defense is a better passing defense. They can defend the pass better. So that'll be interesting. Do you feel like Brock does very well under pressure? So will he see something differently with this Ravens team than we've seen? Because also Lamar does very well against NFC teams. So I'm just curious.
I think Lamar does well against everybody. Like I don't think it's just NFC teams.
Fair. He's in a very the toughest division in all of football, and definitely has done well. So
yeah. But what was the question again?
Whether you thought Brock was going to see something different from this defense that he hasn't seen with anybody else. And actually, I'm kind of like, do you feel like they're similar to the Browns? Because we saw what our defense, what our offense looked like against the Browns. I mean, weather aside.
Just from the naked eye, this feels like the fastest team. I think the Cowboys are a fast team as well. I think this might be the fastest team 49ers will have faced. So, but Kyle does a great job typically. And again, you brought up the Browns game. I think that was the one game for various reasons where it felt like we needed Brock to be a little bit more, and then he just wasn't. And the elements had something to do with that as well. You had a drop pass from Brandon Ayuk down the field, but it felt like, man, Brock is off, right? Like, so I don't know what the Browns did. I think they played a lot more man coverage on 49ers receivers. And I think that was kind of a struggle. You lost CMC in that game. You lost Deebo Samuel. You had a hampered Trent Williams. So I think those things hurt. I think typically Kyle Shanahan does a great job of setting things up, regardless of the defense, to where it doesn't have to be about Brock. So I don't know how much it matters with what the Baltimore Ravens, try to all right, we want to go against Brock and we want to do these things and we want to show Brock things he hasn't seen. I think it's really more so, what does Kyle do to continue to kind of alleviate the pressure from Brock, set him up in an advantageous situation, and Brock take advantage of that, which he's done all year. So that was a long-winded way of me saying I don't think it matters that Brock might see something different. It's really more so about Kyle continuing to set him up and put him in position. All right, now just execute. And then Brock has done that at a high level. So I think we should still see similar results as what we've seen from most of this year.
Love it.
But, all right. Any last thoughts before we head out of here?
We're going to do this, guys. I'm just going to keep this train rolling. We're going to do this. We're a little banged up. But I think that it's a home game, right? Home game. The faithful are going to be loud. We're going to bring it.
Crazy price. I thought, all right, my son hasn't been to a game this year, or I don't think he went to a game. No, he went to Kings game with his mom and stepfather. So I was like, I don't think he's been to a 49er game this year. Let me take him to this game. Man, I looked at them damn tickets. I said, absolutely not. We'll be watching the game from the living room. I would pay at we're talking about section 400, the tippy top, worst seat in the stadium. $600 after taxes and fees for 2 tickets. Absolutely not.
For 2 tickets.
for 2 tickets,
Okay.
like combined $600.
I'm surprised. I'd honestly thought it was going to be more than what the Eagles, because weren't the Eagles games, you said that was like $400 a ticket, right?
Oh yeah, that was pretty crazy too. Yeah.
So I would have expected this to be higher since this is air quote Super Bowl preview potentially. But no, huh?
I mean, still crazy. I mean, we're talking
I
about
mean,
over.
I'm not saying that. Listen, I'm not putting that up.
Typically, when I've gone to 49er games, which I don't go to a lot of home games, but typically when I have gone, I mean, you pay like 200 each, and you're like decent seats. Well,
Yeah.
but I can't. You know what though? I haven't gone to a game this year, so maybe things have changed.
I paid almost $500 for my tickets in Jacksonville. We were in like a 200 section, 300 section. So
Almost 500 each, or for like to combine.
what's that?
Almost $500 each, or 500.
Combined.
Yeah, and that probably is like a part of the 49er effect too. It's like, oh, 49ers coming, let's jack up these prices a little bit. I bet if you would have went to a game like the very next week or the very next home game, they wouldn't be as much. I think that was what the case with the Arizona game, where a single ticket for a 49ers game, like it was pretty expensive. Like over, I think it was like the average, or the lowest ticket was like 200 and some dollars for the Arizona game. But then the very next week you get a ticket for $10.
Got it. That's
So
crazy. $10.
yeah.
Hey, one more thing. Did you see the report that came out about Christian McCaffrey's? Actually, he was on the Peyton Manning, like the Monday night Manning, like Peyton and Eli, and he talked about his training. Did you see that?
No. What did he say?
He does like these. Oh man, let me bring it up because I don't want to get this wrong because it was something like he trains like an animal, like he does animal movements.
That's pretty cool. That would be different because I have watched some of his training. I've seen some of the speed stuff he does. He kind of does like these track warm ups and things like that. But
yeah,
it's the other part.
The quote was playing running back. You got to be able to move your body in a whole bunch of different positions. The 27-year-old said, and so he went on to say that he does like these animal movements because of you've got to contort and twist and hurdle and all these things that you do as a running back. So he does that. He does some gymnastics. Like the trainer that he works on makes sure he doesn't get into too much of a, he doesn't believe in having like muscle fatigue and soreness following the workout. Like it's just like micro dosing is what he said. So I just thought it was interesting because I know you talk a lot about working out and training and things like that. And you train, athletes. So I just thought it'd be interesting to bring up to see if you check that out.
I have not, but I'm gonna have to go listen in on that and see if forget the kids I train. I need to do that for myself. My shoulder, I've been using the bands.
Oh, good.
But Monday we did bench press and I went really light, but it was like a lot. Like it was a high volume on the bench press. I worked out with all the college kids, and because I mean we have, obviously some of y'all know, I live in Stockton, California, so we have a lot of kids that go off to college, play sports, and a lot of girls, a lot of them. But my guy Vince, shout out to Vince Carter, he trains at Elevate 209, and a lot of the kids that he's trained throughout the years that are in college, like they'll come home during this time, Christmas time, and get their workouts in. And we did some kind of bit, I got the kids. I don't want them to show me up. I can't let them.
Oh,
look at this old guy, Crock. Like, he's old. So, I'm just trying to keep up, and I'm paying for it. My shoulder has been really sore ever since then. So I have to, and I didn't work my band work prior to the workout. So I need to make sure that I do more of my band work to make sure I really kind of warm that up. But my wife is setting me up with a doctor's appointment, so I'll find out soon.
All right, listen, and you got to be careful. You can't mess around after you're 40. Once you hit that 4-0 Crock, you're going to mess around and end up like Aaron Rodgers. So you've got to do the proper warm up. You've got to get that stuff going. Can't have you in a walking boot, man. That's not a good look.
Hey, and Instagram is fake, man. I see all these guys in their 40s and 50s. They're all ripped up, shredded. I'm like, is everybody taking TRT, or like why are these guys all ripped up like that? And I'm like, man, I'm struggling. I'm 36 years old and struggling to keep up right now.
Yep, aging. It's fun.
All right, that's gonna do it for this episode. Make sure you guys follow Coach Desi on Twitter/X. Where can they find you?
Coach_Desi on X, and Instagram is Coach Desi.
All right.
And
Next time we see Coach Desi. Oh, go ahead.
and then let's finish up this bird hunting season, y'all. Let's do this.
5 straight games against the Bird. 4 games, 4 birds down, 1 more to go. We're out.
I need this one, Faithful. I need this one. Go cheer super loud for me on Monday night.
For bragging rights in the household, in the Coach Desi household.
That's it. Christmas. It'll be my Christmas present. Oh, man. Come on. Let's do this.
Let's go.